The jurist and heresiologist Shaykh Abdul Qahir bin Tahir bin Muhammad al-Baghdadi Isfarayini. Isfarayini is one of the great scholars. He died in 429. But he said that the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah comprise 8 categories. And this is very useful for you to understand how, because he's one of the early scholars. 429 is considered he's not from the Salaf. Some say the Salaf goes up to the 5th century, so he would be included in the Salaf. But he's from that very early period. And but he says the first category is the group who mastered the various aspects of Tawheed. So they're the theologians of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They know about the nubuwat, prophecy, the eschatological aspects of theology, that relate also to rewards and punishments in the hereafter, as well as the conditions of ijtihad. So they know how ijtihad is done. In all of this, they have gone the route of the people of attributes from our theologians, the people of sifat, because the Mu'attila nullified the attributes of God. And the Ahl Sunnah affirm the attributes of God, that God, when He speaks about attributes, that He does have those attributes, and that they are to be affirmed and not nullified. And then they're free of anthropomorphism, tajsim, so they don't believe literal things like that God is literally in a place, or He's literally on a physical throne, things like that. They don't believe those things. They say, we believe Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, we believe in it. You either say ala muradillah, whatever God meant by it, I believe in it, but what occurs to the mind, it's other than that, because that's impossible for God. That's called ta'wil ijmali. The later ulama gave it a ta'wil tafsili, a detailed interpretation, and said what it meant. So that's the position of the people who are not anthropomorphous. And then also the Jahmiyyah, who, for instance, said that the essence of God is everywhere. It's like a panentheism. And other groups like the Najariya. The second category is the Imams of jurisprudence, from the 2 groups of juristic reasoning and transmission, the people of Hadith and the people of Ray. Ahlul Ray are like the Hanafis, Ahlul Hadith like the Hanbalis and Shafi'is, and then the Imam Malik joins between the 2. So they believe in those groups, and they're free from i'tizal, the type of absolute dependence on rationalism, and also the jabr, which is a belief in determinism. So they're neither determinists nor are they people that believe in absolute free will. They're between the 2. And they believe in the raising of the graves as well as the questioning in the grave, because there's people that deny the questioning of the grave. They believe in the bodily resurrection. They also believe in the reality of the intercession and the forgiveness of all wrongs from Allah, with the exception of shirk. And obviously that, and we'll get into that, but that is people who willingly commit shirk. They affirm the continuity of the paradise for its people and the torment of fire for the rejectors of truth. So the idea that the paradise is, it's what they call in scholastic terminology, aeviternal. It goes on forever, although it had a beginning. And they also believe in the obligation of congregational prayer, Jumu'ah, behind all imams. So Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah pray behind imams as long as they're free of heresy and deviation. In other words, bid'ah and zandaqah. But if they're a bad person, you still pray behind them, if they're a reprobate. And they confirm the permissibility of wiping over the khuf socks. And what's important about that, it seems like a silly issue to bring up. It's even in the creed of Imam Tahawi. But the real issue was about, mutawatir hadith, and whether the hadith reaches the status of the Quran. Because the Quran doesn't mention khuf, it tells you have to wipe the feet. But the khuf is mentioned in the hadith, and it's a mutawatir hadith. So the reason they say, and they believe in the khuf, what they're really saying is they believe that a mutawatir hadith has the same value as a verse of Quran. I mean, that's really what they're saying. They just use that ruling because that's a rule. The Khawarij rejected that. So that was a major issue in the early period. The Khawarij said you can't wipe off over the socks. And then they also believe that the pronouncement of divorce is 3 times binding. All right? Because this is an interesting issue that's been raised now in modern times. They believe that the temporary marriage is prohibited, mut'ah is prohibited, and that they also deem obedience to authority of the state as an obligation, as long as it is not anything that constitutes agreed upon disobedience to Allah. So they believe in civil governance and that you actually have to obey the state, that you cannot enter into insurrection against the state. This is a really important point about the Ahle Sunnah, is that they're against the Khawarij view that insurrection is acceptable. And then, and this includes the companions of Malik, Shafi'i, Awza'i, Thawri, Abu Hanifa, Ibn Abi Layla, Layth, Abu Thawr, and the companions of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, as well as the Ahl al-Zahir, the literalist in fiqh. It includes them. And all of the other scholars who believed in the matters of intellectual understanding the way of the people of attributes and did not dilute their beliefs with any innovations of the people of heresy and deviation. The third category is those people who have mastered the science of hadith and their various chains and pathways that lead back to the Prophet. Those who were able to distinguish between sound and weak transmissions, and they mastered the science of critical analysis and assessment of men and women in the chains of transmission and the various reasons they are acceptable or rejected. Moreover, they do not dilute any of their knowledge with innovations of the people of heresy and deviation. So the muhaddithun are from the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The fourth category is the people who have mastered the humanities, including grammar and morphology, and followed the guidelines of the imams of language. So that's a very important aspect of the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. People, the poets, the people that master the Jahili poetry, the people that spend their lives preserving language, even though it's not related to the religion itself as a religious science. It's an ancillary science to religion, right? It's not a religious science. It's a science that religion is dependent upon. But because those people preserve that science, they're considered part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So it's when you meet people that love grammar and want to study language, they shouldn't be discouraged like, oh, you're wasting your time, you should be studying Quran. You know, there's people that tell them that, you're wasting your time. No, you need those people, because you can't understand the Quran without those people. And that's why the Sunni, the Muslims generally always honored grammarians and philologists and the people of poetry and adab, of literature, always. Imam al-Hariri, you know, these were great scholars of language. So that's important. And then the fifth category, and amongst them are Khalil, Abu Amr ibn Ala, Sibawi, Al-Farra, Al-Akhfash, Al-Asma'i, Al-Mazini, Abu Ubaid, and other imams from the Kufans, the grammarians, that did not dilute their knowledge with innovations of Rawafida or the Qadariyah or the Khawarij or the Mu'tazili. Like Imam Zamakhshari was a Mu'tazili, and the Ahl Sunnah have a soft spot for him because he was such a genius, and his tafsir is so essential to the tafsir tradition. I mean, many scholars admitted that their favorite tafsir was the tafsir of Imam Zamakhshari. So even though he was Mu'tazilite, the Sunni scholars had a soft spot for him for that reason. And he was very self-deprecating. He was an interesting man. The fifth category is those who have mastered the variants of Quran, the different commentaries, so the Mufassirun and the Qurra, the people of the Quran. The sixth category is the virtuous ascetics and Sufis who penetrated the reality of this world and left it for others, who tested things and took them from the lessons of discernment, who were pleased with the divine decree and content with what was easily obtained, who realized that the hearing, sight, and heart are all things that man is asked about, both the good and the bad, who took themselves to account even if it concerned the weight of an ant, and thus they prepared for Judgment Day the best provision. Their words followed the two ways of the outward meaning and the inward indication in accordance with the methodology of the people of Hadith, without using it simply to entertain with clever art forms of speech. They do not do good deeds to show off, nor do they leave them out of modesty. Their way is that of the unique, al-wahid, and they negate any anthropomorphism. Their school is that of turning the matter over to Allah. So these are the people of tasawwuf that are rightly guided, and they're very clearly demarcated historically. Imam Junaid is an imam by consensus. You know, everybody accepts Imam Junaid, and he was called Imam al-Ta'ifatain. He was a faqih in the Thawri madhab, but he was also a man of tasawwuf. So tasawwuf has there are two branches of tasawwuf. The first is a fard ayn, which is like what's in purification of the heart. That aspect of tasawwuf, which is purifying your heart. Imam al-Fakihani, one of the great Maliki scholars, said, before you set out to study knowledge, you should purify your heart, because you will never benefit from knowledge if your heart is impure. And he said, preparing your heart for knowledge is like preparing the earth for planting. You know, before you actually put seed into the earth, you have to cultivate the earth with a plow. And he said that's what you had to do with your heart. So removing the negative qualities and adorning the heart with the positive qualities. The awwal at-tawadu' at-takalluf. You know, the beginning of humility is forcing yourself to be humble. So that was very important. And the people of tasawwuf were the people that focused on that aspect. And that's why tasawwuf is one of the sciences of Islam. To deny tasawwuf is to deny الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, the people who have khushu' in their prayer. I guarantee you there's no fiqh book that talks about how you get khushu'. It'll tell you that you have to have khushu' in your prayer for at least lahza. Like in the Maliki madhab, if you have to have some khushu' in your prayer, even if it's a moment. But it doesn't tell you how you develop khushu', because it's not the object of fiqh. It's not one of the topics of fiqh. That is in tasawwuf. And that's the word that was used by the Muslims historically, is tasawwuf. So those people that deny tasawwuf are the same type of people that deny madhabs and that deny, tawheed, ilm al-kalam. This is the same type of people. And it's very unfortunate, that this has happened, but it's one of the unfortunate aspects of the modern phenomenon of Islam. That the Prophet said the end of time will not come until the later people condemn the earlier people. لا تقوم الساعة حتى يسب آخر هذه الأمة أولها. So the Prophet mentioned that the later people are going to condemn the earlier people. So, but that's also, it's important to point out that there's a lot of innovations in what goes under the category of tasawwuf. So it doesn't mean tasawwuf we just accept anybody who says they're a Sufi, and we accept anything that calls itself tasawwuf. No, tasawwuf is based on the book and the Sunnah. And if you don't find a firm foundation in the book and the Sunnah, it's rejected. And that's what the Imams of tasawwuf said. Imam Junaid said, هذا العلم مقيد بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله. This is a science that is absolutely rooted in the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet. And so if you don't find it in the book of Allah, Imam al-Tusturi, Sahar al-Tusturi said, Darimi, one of them, said that, he said, ما سمعت كلمة من القوم إلا عرضتها على شاهدين عادلين كتاب الله وسنة رسول الله. That I never heard anything from the Sufis except that I put it before two just witnesses to testify for or against it, and that's the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So that is the way of tasawwuf, and that's what he's saying. Those are the people that are rightly guided, not the false ones, not the you have the skewer people and the snake handlers. Just like in Christianity you have the people that take literally the handling of snakes or speaking in tongues and things like that. You have those manifestations of religion in every tradition, but that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a scholastic tradition that also relates to practice and experience. The second aspect of tasawwuf is the science of ahwal and maqamat, the science of states and stations. Because if you're on a strong spiritual path, if you're doing a lot of dhikr and meditation, getting up at night, things start happening. And some of it, there's ways to distinguish between inward sensory terrestrial, inward sensory celestial, inward meaning terrestrial, inward meaning celestial, outward terrestrial, outward celestial, outward meaning terrestrial, outward meaning celestial, outward meaning terrestrial, inward, outward terrestrial, sensory. I mean, those are all categories in that science, and they look at things. So people will have what they think is a spiritual experience, and it's not. It's just your ego. But you think you had this amazing spiritual experience. It was purely ego. Or it could have been demonic. Because there are khawatir shaytaniyah, and people think they're having, I had this amazing experience. And it was a demonic experience. I mean, seriously, there's people that feel the Holy Ghost infusing them. They have amazing experiences. There's people that have sensory experiences and they're convinced that they're deep spiritual experience. There's people that take LSD and think that they've had enlightenment. Really. It's not, it's real. These things are real. There's people that go into psychotic states and they're convinced. I mean, I've had people come to me seriously. I mean, I've seen people go mad from dhikrullah. Mad. From doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. People have come to me and told me they're the Mahdi. And like, completely believing it. And saying, I had these experiences. You have to listen to me. You have to be able to distinguish between those, to know what's happening to you. And if you don't know that science, you go to somebody who knows that science. Because you need help. Like a doctor, you need to go to a doctor. Just like if you start having hallucinations, you go to a doctor. Well, if you start having spiritual experiences, you need somebody to put those into a perspective. The same with true dreams. There's people that have dreams and they think they've had a dream, and it means exactly the opposite of what they think it means. There's people that have dreams, that they're eating pork and they think that it's something haram. And read what Ibn Sirin says about seeing yourself eating pork. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but it depends. Dreams are all mysterious, and that realm of the dream world is very mysterious, but it has meaning, and there are people that know those meanings. It's not the things that you can learn in a book. Like Ibn Sirin wrote a book on dreams. It's an interesting book, but it's very dangerous to use that book to interpret dreams. One lady came to Aisha and she told her dream. She gave a negative interpretation. The Prophet got very upset with her. So, that's a science, the science of dream interpretation. And there's people that know that science. And then there's people that don't. And there's people that think they do. And they're the big problem. So, the seventh category are the murabitun, and those are the people that guard the borders of Islam and defend the Muslims from encroachment of people attacking them. They defend women and the homes of the Muslims, and they display adherence to the Sunnah and Jama'ah, and they follow the verse that said, those who struggle for our sake, we will guide them to our way. The eighth category, and this is very important, is the general population of the lands of the Muslims where Sunni Islam is dominated, notwithstanding areas in which deviation has been predominant. What we mean by this is general Muslim people who believe that the scholars of the Sunnah wal Jama'ah are correct in the matters that concern the just sacred law and the theological issues, as well as the eschatological matters of the hereafter. They refer back to their scholars in order to understand their religion, and they imitate them in the branches of jurisprudence that relate to the permissible and the impermissible. Moreover, they do not believe in any of the innovations and deviations of the people of heresies. They are those who have been characterized by the Sufis as the stuff of paradise. Hashwal Jannah. they fill up paradise, majority of people. So these are the groups of the people of Sunnah and Jama'ah, and together they constitute the true and upright deen and straight path. May Allah make us firm with the firmest words in this life and the next. Indeed, He answers appropriately, and He is capable of all things. So that's Imam al-Isfaraini's categories. I think they're very useful for people. The idea of attacking people for their religion is something that in traditional Islam the Muslims were very flexible. It's very difficult to get out of Islam. You have to do something really egregious to get out of this religion. Ahmed ibn Hanbal said, the only thing that can get you out of this religion is to deny the very thing that got you in the religion. That's what he said. He said, لا يخرجك من هذا الدين إلا إنكار ما أدخلك فيه, which is لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. And so it's very hard to do that. The ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura, I mean, we'll go into that, but generally the ulama did not make takfir of people, and that's one of the hallmarks of the people of Sunnah, is they don't make takfir of other Muslims. Even like the Shia and whoever, they don't make takfir of people that say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, unless there's specific. I mean, there are ways in which people can anathematize themselves, but even for those people, there is a process. It's not just done. You don't just call somebody a kafir. There's a qadi, and people actually. Historically, there were ways in which that was done. It wasn't done lightly at all. It was very hard to and they would look for ta'wil. They would like try to find some excuse for the person. Maybe you believe this, or maybe you think that. The jurist and heresiologist Shaykh Abdul Qahir bin Tahir bin Muhammad al-Baghdadi Isfarayini is one of the great scholars. He died in 429. But he said that the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah comprise 8 categories. And this is very useful for you to understand how, because he's one of the early scholars. 429 is considered he's not from the Salaf. Some say the Salaf goes up to the 5th century, so he would be included in the Salaf. But he's from that very early period. And but he says the first category is the group who mastered the various aspects of Tawheed. So they're the theologians of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They know about the nubuwat, prophecy, the eschatological aspects of theology, that relate also to rewards and punishments in the hereafter, as well as the conditions of ijtihad. So they know how ijtihad is done. In all of this, they have gone the route of the people of attributes from our theologians, the people of sifat, because the Mu'attila nullified the attributes of God. And the Ahl Sunnah affirm the attributes of God, that God, when He speaks about attributes, that He does have those attributes, and they are to be affirmed and not nullified. And then they're free of anthropomorphism, tajseem, so they don't believe literal things, like that God is literally in a place, or He's literally on a physical throne, things like that. They don't believe those things. They say, we believe Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, we believe in it. You either say ala muradillah, whatever God meant by it, I believe in it, but what occurs to the mind, it's other than that, because that's impossible for God. That's called ta'wil ijmali. The later ulama gave it a ta'wil tafsili, a detailed interpretation, and said what it meant. So that's the position of the people who are not anthropomorphous. And then also the Jahmiyyah, who, for instance, said that the essence of God is everywhere. It's like a panentheism. And other groups like the Najariya. The second category is the Imams of jurisprudence, from the 2 groups of juristic reasoning and transmission, the people of Hadith and the people of Ray. Ahl al-Ray are like the Hanafis, Ahlul Hadith, like the Hanbalis and Shafi'is, and then the Imam Malik joins between the two. So they believe in those groups, and they're free from i'tizal, the type of absolute dependence on rationalism, and also the jabr, which is a belief in determinism. So they're neither determinists nor are they people that believe in absolute free will. They're between the two. And they believe in the raising of the graves as well as the questioning in the grave, because there's people that deny the questioning of the grave. They believe in the bodily resurrection. They also believe in the reality of the intercession and the forgiveness of all wrongs from Allah, with the exception of shirk. And obviously that, and we'll get into that, but that is people who willingly commit shirk. They affirm the continuity of the paradise for its people and the torment of the fire for the rejectors of truth. So the idea that the paradise is, it's what they call in scholastic terminology, aeviternal. It goes on forever, although it had a beginning. And they also believe in the obligation of congregational prayer, Jumu'ah, behind all imams. So Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah pray behind imams as long as they're free of heresy and deviation. In other words, bid'ah and zandaqah. But if they're a bad person, you still pray behind them, if they're a reprobate. And they confirm the permissibility of wiping over the khuf socks. And what's important about that, and it seems like a silly issue to bring up, it's even in the creed of Imam Tahawi, but the real issue was about mutawatir hadith and whether the hadith reaches the status of the Quran, because the Quran doesn't mention khuf. It tells you have to wipe the feet, but the khuf is mentioned in the hadith, and it's a mutawatir hadith. So the reason they say and they believe in the khuf, what they're really saying is they believe that a mutawatir hadith has the same value as a verse of Quran. I mean, that's really what they're saying. They just use that ruling because that's a rule. The Khawarij rejected that. So that was a major issue in the early period. The Khawarij said you can't wipe off over the socks. And then they also believe that the pronouncement of divorce is 3 times binding. All right? Because this is an interesting issue that's been raised now in modern times. They believe that the temporary marriage is prohibited, mut'ah is prohibited, and that they also deem obedience to authority of the state as an obligation, as long as it is not anything that constitutes agreed upon disobedience to Allah. So they believe in civil governance, and that you actually have to obey the state, that you cannot enter into insurrection against the state. This is a really important point about the Ahle Sunnah, is that they're against the Khawarij view that insurrection is acceptable. And then, and this includes the companions of Malik, Shafi'i, Awza'i, Thawri, Abu Hanifa, Ibn Abi Layla, Layth, Abu Thawr, and the companions of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, as well as the Ahl al-Zahir, the literalist in fiqh. It includes them. And all of the other scholars who believed in the matters of intellectual understanding the way of the people of attributes and did not dilute their beliefs with any innovations of the people of heresy and deviation. The third category is those people who have mastered the science of hadith and their various chains and pathways that lead back to the Prophet. Those who were able to distinguish between sound and weak transmissions, and they mastered the science of critical analysis and assessment of men and women in the chains of transmission and the various reasons they are acceptable or rejected. Moreover, they do not dilute any of their knowledge with innovations of the people of heresy and deviation. So the muhaddithun are from the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The fourth category is the people who've mastered the humanities, including grammar and morphology, and followed the guidelines of the imams of language. So that's a very important aspect of the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. People, the poets, the people that master the Jahili poetry, the people that spend their lives preserving language, even though it's not related to the religion itself as a religious science, it's an ancillary science to religion. right? It's not a religious science. It's a science that religion is dependent upon. But because those people preserve that science, they're considered part of Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So it's when you meet people that love grammar and want to study language, they shouldn't be discouraged like, oh, you're wasting your time, you should be studying Quran. You know, there's people that tell them that, you're wasting your time. No, you need those people, because you can't understand the Quran without those people. And that's why the Sunni, the Muslims generally always honored grammarians and philologists and the people of poetry and adab, of literature, always. Imam al-Hariri, you know, these were great scholars of language. So that's important. And then the fifth category, and amongst them are Khalil, Abu Amr ibn Ala, Sibawi, Al-Farra, Al-Akhfash, Al-Asma'i, Al-Mazini, Abu Ubaid, and other imams from the Kufans, the grammarians, that did not dilute their knowledge with innovations of Rawafida or the Qadariyah or the Khawarij or the Mu'tazili. Like Imam Zamakhshari was a Mu'tazili. And the Ahl Sunnah have a soft spot for him, because he was such a genius, and his tafsir is so essential to the tafsir tradition. I mean, many scholars admitted that their favorite tafsir was the tafsir of Imam Zamakhshari. So even though he was Mu'tazilite, the Sunni scholars had a soft spot for him for that reason. And he was very self-deprecating. He was an interesting man. The fifth category is those who have mastered the variants of Quran, the different commentaries, so the Mufassirun and the Qurra, the people of the Quran. The sixth category is the virtuous ascetics and Sufis who penetrated the reality of this world and left it for others, who tested things and took them from the lessons of discernment, who were pleased with the divine decree and content with what was easily obtained, who realized that the hearing, sight, and heart are all things that man is asked about, both the good and the bad, who took themselves to account even if it concerned the weight of an ant, and thus they prepared for Judgment Day the best provision. Their words followed the two ways of the outward meaning and the inward indication in accordance with the methodology of the people of Hadith, without using it simply to entertain with clever art forms of speech. They do not do good deeds to show off, nor do they leave them out of modesty. Their way is that of the unique, al-wahid, and they negate any anthropomorphism. Their school is that of turning the matter over to Allah. So these are the people of tasawwuf that are rightly guided, and they're very clearly demarcated historically. Imam Junaid is an imam by consensus. You know, everybody accepts Imam Junaid. And he was called Imam al-Ta'ifatain. He was a faqih in the Thawri madhab, but he was also a man of tasawwuf. So tasawwuf has there are two branches of tasawwuf. The first is a fard ayn, which is like what's in purification of the heart. That aspect of tasawwuf, which is purifying your heart. Imam al-Fakihani, one of the great Maliki scholars, said, before you set out to study knowledge, you should purify your heart, because you will never benefit from knowledge if your heart is impure. And he said, preparing your heart for knowledge is like preparing the earth for planting. You know, before you actually put seed into the earth, you have to cultivate the earth with a plow. And he said that's what you had to do with your heart. So removing the negative qualities and adorning the heart with the positive qualities. The awwal at-tawadu' at-takalluf. You know, the beginning of humility is forcing yourself to be humble. So that was very important. And the people of tasawwuf were the people that focused on that aspect. And that's why tasawwuf is one of the sciences of Islam. To deny tasawwuf is to deny الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, the people who have khushu' in their prayer. I guarantee you there's no fiqh book that talks about you know, how you get khushu'. It'll tell you that you have to have khushu' in your prayer for at least lahza. Like in the Maliki madhab, if you have to have some khushu' in your prayer, even if it's a moment. But it doesn't tell you how you develop khushu', because it's not the object of fiqh. It's not one of the topics of fiqh. That is in tasawwuf. And that's the word that was used by the Muslims historically. is tasawwuf. So those people that deny tasawwuf are the same type of people that deny madhabs and that deny, tawheed, ilm al-kalam. This is the same type of people, and it's very unfortunate, that this has happened. But it's one of the unfortunate aspects of the modern phenomenon of Islam. That the Prophet said the end of time will not come until the later people condemn the earlier people. لا تقوم الساعة حتى يسب آخر هذه الأمة أولها. So the Prophet mentioned that the later people are going to condemn the earlier people. So, but that's also, it's important to point out that there's a lot of innovations in what goes under the category of tasawwuf. So it doesn't mean tasawwuf we just accept anybody who says they're a Sufi, and we accept anything that calls itself tasawwuf. No, tasawwuf is based on the book and the Sunnah. And if you don't find a firm foundation in the book and the Sunnah, it's rejected. And that's what the Imams of tasawwuf said. Imam Junaid said, هذا العلم مقيد بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله. This is a science that is absolutely rooted in the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet. And so if you don't find it in the book of Allah, Imam al-Tusturi, Sahar al-Tusturi said, Darimi, one of them, said that, he said, ما سمعت كلمة من القوم إلا عرضتها على شاهدين عادلين كتاب الله وسنة رسول الله. That I never heard anything from the Sufis except that I put it before two just witnesses to testify for or against it. And that's the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So that is the way of tasawwuf. And that's what he's saying. Those are the people that are rightly guided. Not the false ones, not the, you have the skewer people and the snake handlers. Just like in Christianity, you have the people that take literally the handling of snakes or speaking in tongues and things like that. You have those manifestations of religion in every tradition, but that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a scholastic tradition that also relates to practice and experience. The second aspect of tasawwuf is the science of ahwal and maqamat, the science of states and stations. Because if you're on a strong spiritual path, if you're doing a lot of dhikr and meditation, getting up at night, things start happening. And some of it, there's ways to distinguish between inward sensory terrestrial, inward sensory celestial, inward meaning terrestrial, inward meaning celestial, outward terrestrial, outward celestial, outward meaning terrestrial, outward meaning celestial, outward meaning terrestrial, inward, outward terrestrial, sensory. Those are all categories in that science, and they look at things. So people will have what they think is a spiritual experience, and it's not. It's just your ego. But you think you had this amazing spiritual experience. It was purely ego. Or it could have been demonic. Because there are khawatir shaytaniyah, and people think they're having, I had this amazing experience. And it was a demonic experience. Seriously, there's people that feel the Holy Ghost infusing them. They have amazing experiences. There's people that have sensory experiences and they're convinced that they're deep spiritual experience. There's people that take LSD and think that they've had enlightenment. Really. It's not, it's real. These things are real. There's people that go into psychotic states and they're convinced. I've had people come to me seriously. I've seen people go mad from dhikrullah. Mad. From doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. People have come to me and told me they're the Mahdi. And completely believing it. And saying, I had these experiences. You have to listen to me. Those, you have to be able to distinguish between those to know what's happening to you. And if you don't know that science, you go to somebody who knows that science. Because you need help. Like a doctor, you need to go to a doctor. Just like if you start having hallucinations, you go to a doctor. Well, if you start having spiritual experiences, you need somebody to put those into a perspective. The same with true dreams. There's people that have dreams and they think they've had a dream, and it means exactly the opposite of what they think it means. There's people that have dreams, that they're eating pork and they think that it's something haram. And read what Ibn Sirin says about seeing yourself eating pork. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but it depends. Dreams are all mysterious, and that realm of the dream world is very mysterious, but it has meaning, and there are people that know those meanings. It's not the things that you can learn in a book. Like Ibn Sirin wrote a book on dreams. It's an interesting book, but it's very dangerous to use that book to interpret dreams. One lady came to Aisha and she told her dream. She gave a negative interpretation. The Prophet got very upset with her. So, that's a science, the science of dream interpretation. And there's people that know that science. And then there's people that don't. And there's people that think they do. And they're the big problem. So, the seventh category are the murabitun, and those are the people that guard the borders of Islam and defend the Muslims from encroachment of people attacking them. They defend women and the homes of the Muslims, and they display adherence to the Sunnah and Jama'ah, and they follow the verse that said, "Those who struggle for our sake, we will guide them to our way." The eighth category, and this is very important, is the general population of the lands of the Muslims where Sunni Islam is dominated, notwithstanding areas in which deviation has been predominant. What we mean by this is general Muslim people who believe that the scholars of the Sunnah wal Jama'ah are correct in the matters that concern the just sacred law and the theological issues, as well as the eschatological matters of the hereafter. They refer back to their scholars in order to understand their religion, and they imitate them in the branches of jurisprudence that relate to the permissible and the impermissible. Moreover, they do not believe in any of the innovations and deviations of the people of heresies. They are those who have been characterized by the Sufis as the stuff of paradise. Hashwal Jannah. They fill up paradise, majority of people. So these are the groups of the people of Sunnah and Jama'ah, and together they constitute the true and upright deen and straight path. May Allah make us firm with the firmest words in this life and the next. Indeed, He answers appropriately, and He is capable of all things. So that's Imam al-Isfaraini's categories. I think they're very useful for people. The idea of attacking people for their religion is something that in traditional Islam the Muslims were very flexible. It's very difficult to get out of Islam. You have to do something really egregious to get out of this religion. Ahmed ibn Hanbal said the only thing that can get you out of this religion is to deny the very thing that got you in the religion. That's what he said. He said, "لا يخرجك من هذا الدين إلا إنكار ما أدخلك فيه," which is "لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله." And so it's very hard to do that. The ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura, we'll go into that, but generally the ulama did not make takfir of people, and that's one of the hallmarks of the people of Sunnah, is they don't make takfir of other Muslims. Even like the Shia and whoever, they don't make takfir of people that say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, unless there's specific. There are ways in which people can anathematize themselves, but even for those people, there is a process. It's not just done. You don't just call somebody a kafir. There's a qadi, and people actually. Historically, there were ways in which that was done. It wasn't done lightly at all. It was very hard to and they would look for ta'wil. They would try to find some excuse for the person. Maybe you believe this, or maybe you think that.